So we're going to go through this PowerPoint about interview tips. So the first couple of slides relate directly to your proposal paper, and then there's some general tips for using interviews in research. So in my 102 classes, I often have students use an interview as one of their options for their research papers. So a few general interview tips as well as what's specific to your paper. So your goal for this paper is to conduct a brief informal interview. So nothing terribly fancy, nothing very long. You're just going to ask a few questions. I am going to ask you for next week to turn that material in as a separate journal. So what I mean by that is you will turn in your questions with their answers. So make sure you interview somebody you can get in touch with in the next week or two. And you'll also explain to me in that journal why you picked that particular person. I need you to ask just 3 questions. You can ask more, but 3 is the requirement. And you'll use those answers in your proposal paper, your ultimate proposal paper. So you could use those in your paper as quotes. You can use them as paraphrase or a combination. I'm asking you to use at least 2 things from that interview in the paper. They can come anywhere in the paper. The person that you talk to should obviously be familiar with the topic. A lot of times that means they're going to be the person who's arguing on the con side over your topic, but it doesn't have to be. It can also be the person that you're asking to get involved in the compromise with you. So the most logical audience for the paper might be the person that you interview, or you may interview somebody that's not who you're writing to. That's up to you. But it should be somebody that knows about the topic, obviously. It can give you, they might give you background information, they might give you perspective on the pros or the cons of your idea and so forth. Remember for this paper that you're arguing your proposal. You're not just arguing about, say, school food. You're arguing about the idea that you came up with for your child to have better food at school or to take better lunches to school. And you're going to describe that problem in the paper, and then the pros and cons, the rebuttals and justification, same thing, are about that actual proposal, not about the topic. So that's important to keep in mind. There were a couple of things related to that in the ideas that you gave me for topics that I mentioned when I gave some feedback. Okay, the interview will be cited on a works cited page. Super simple citation. There's a couple of examples at the bottom. So it's the last name, comma, first name, period of the person that you interviewed, the type of interview. So the first one says personal interview. That means face-to-face. You sat down with them, talked to them. The other one says email interview. So whatever type of interview it was, then you'll put your name as conducted by you. And then the date of the interview, MLA style date, and the punctuation should match these examples at the bottom. So you'll cite it on the works cited page and also in text, which most of the time you're going to refer to the person by name, or you can put their last name in a parenthetical note at the end of the sentence or sentences that you're using. Any kind of interview is fine. I do not recommend texting or like Snapchatting, but any other kind of interview is fine with me for this paper. So keeping in mind, this is the basic outline of the paper. So you'll introduce the problem, you'll give your original dream scenario proposal, you want some detail to that, and it's okay if it's not quite perfect or if it's a little bit more expensive or extreme than normally you would propose, because you are going to argue with it. And then after arguing 2 different pros, 2 different cons, then you're going to come up with a compromise. So you're going to either change that original proposal, make it better, more fair, less expensive, whatever those problems are that you're dealing with in the paper, or you can come up with a whole new, better, more reasonable suggestion. So here is an example of what your question might look like. This is related to a particular school and their school uniform policy. They're letting them know that they're writing about this for a paper. They're asking in the question about why the guidelines were originally made, getting a little background. And then the second question, they're saying, if we got rid of it, maybe that's their dream scenario plan, we're going to scrap it and let people wear what they want. What problems would they expect? And so the person is answering, we expect there might be, inappropriate clothing or clothing with slogans that the kids shouldn't be wearing to school, that kind of thing. Sorry. So again, some general tips. Make sure you get your interview set up ahead of time. Don't wait till the last minute because obviously you want to be polite to the person you're interviewing. Let them know what your subject is, why you're doing this interview. Here's a few different kinds of questions. So if you do ask follow-up questions, those generally don't count as a separate question. But if they give you kind of a short, off-the-cuff answer and you need more detail, then ask them for that. If they say, well, I think we'd have some problems, then your job is to say, well, what kind of problems do you expect? So make sure you're following up, getting some good detail. Even though this is informal, you don't need a ton of information. You still want to conduct a good interview so you have material you can use. Make sure to listen to the person. If they do have a lot to say, give them space to actually talk so that you may get some information you might not have even expected. And also, it's just polite. You don't have to physically record the interview. If you do, make sure they're okay with that. But do take notes. Again, you're going to be turning in that transcript for starters, but also for your own purposes because you're going to be using this as a source. Make sure you know the person. It's okay for this particular paper if you interview family and friends. For a research paper, I generally suggest not doing that, but in this case, you're going to talk to somebody who knows about the problem. The problems are relatively small, so I'm okay with you picking someone that you personally know for this. And I'm skimming through these. Obviously, the PowerPoint is also on Blackboard. So remember that you want to get quotations as well as, get them to give detail and explanation. So make sure that you are setting things up to get a good interview. Make sure that when you take your notes, you're being very deliberate about recording what they said, especially if you're going to use it as a direct quotation. And then these are some different resources if you'd like some more information about interviewing. So that's it. Just make sure you're setting things up so you have that interview ready to turn in for the journal, which will be due obviously before the actual paper. Paper will be due towards the end of the month, towards the end of April, but the journal will be due a little bit sooner. So make sure you're getting that set up. Let me know if you have any questions.